everybody. Happy Monday. This is Overpass Live. My name is Eric and I make apps. This is the weekly live stream where we just hang out and we talk about whatever we want to talk about. Now, we didn't do a live stream last week because I was at Thorpe Park. Actually, got a little bit of something from the camera. I was at Thorpe Park, which is an amusement park in London with my family and everything like that. So it was, it was great. Brought my kids and was going on a lot of roller coasters and everything. And I thought about doing the live stream there, but I thought, it's kind of like one of those things, as a dad, you got to do dad things. And so sometimes, Monday was like the ideal time because nothing's very crowded on a Monday. It was a bit crowded, but not too bad. So anyway, it was fun. And then last week, just, doing a bunch of work, doing some contract work. I also was trying to do a bit of Objective-C work last week. I was doing a little bit of Objective-C work, but I'm really not happy with Objective-C. Every time I use it, it's like, everything just seems so complicated to me. And I know it's because, probably because of the level of experience that I have with it. So it's a little bit more difficult when everything just seems like I just want to be able to pass a function into this function and get a callback back. But then you have to go through, check all this kind of stuff. So anyway, I tried out this new tool, which is called Swiftify, which takes Objective-C code and switches and just converts it automatically to Swift. And I got to tell you, that tool did not work at all. It was like, I guess it did some stuff, but then it was like the amount of errors I had, I was like, oh, jeez, yeah, this is not working, right? And then, so I was not happy with this tool anyway. So that was like not an endorsement, and I kind of knew it. I've used like tools let me know if you guys can hear me, by the way. So anyway, I've used tools that will convert code from one thing to another. Like I tried to use one called Automagical, which would take Objective-C and convert it to C#. That didn't really work. A lot of times it only works like if you know both languages and you can make those transformations, everything like that. So, but I guess it could save you some time, but it was an expensive tool, and that was just $100 for 1 month, just gone. And they had this little thing on there where you just upload the code and they'll give you a quote like immediately. So I thought, okay, well, I'll do that. I'll give you a quote. And then they said 2 business days. And then 2 business days later, they said it was going to cost however much. And anyway, but you try new things. Now I know that it's not that's not working so well. And I always do this thing when I take on a new project where, like, usually in the beginning stages where I have a lot of time, I think, maybe I'll just rewrite this entire thing in Xamarin. Maybe I'll just rewrite this in Flutter. And then I'll even start doing it. And then, I just started doing it thinking, actually, this is stupid. All I'm going to do is a few little changes here and there. So anyway, got it. It was a good week. So anyway, thanks everybody for joining the live stream. Really appreciate it. Oh, also, it's getting a bit warm in the flat. So you guys got to be really, really glad you're not here because I stink. Anyway, I just noticed it right before live stream starts. But anyway, Bart Rock is here. Hey, everybody from lockdown Melbourne. Yeah, it sounds like you guys got it really bad over there. Like, it seems like there's, from what I've heard, there's not been a lot of cases, but there's been, but it's locking down. Are you happy with that, Bart? Or it's like, are you like, because it kind of seems like Australia's done a really good job of, keeping all that stuff out. But let's see, Enes Tekken, hello from Turkey, and you got the Fez on. That's awesome. Hey, how's it going? Rachel Reed says, at the beginning of a project, do you prefer to charge clients a fixed cost and accept scope creep, unforeseen issues, or an hourly rate? Which do clients prefer and which works out best? My assumption is always, I've always done fixed price. And the reason is because I have to anticipate some scope creep. Now, there's times where that scope creep is just too much and I can't handle it. So I try to anticipate a certain amount of scope creep. But what I don't want to be doing is going back and saying, I'm sorry, it's taking longer than expected. I'm sorry. And then that's like that, the paying for the hours. Now, paying for the hours is probably the most pure form of it because you're doing the work. And if you're too slow, then they fire you, right? That's how they know. They know that you're thinking, okay, I'm going to need more money. It's going to cost more than you thought, everything, whatever. Because your estimate was wrong, whatever like that. But it also means that if they ask for something new, you can say, okay, that wasn't originally agreed upon, and that's going to take another 5 hours. So that's going to cost you such and such. So I try to padded out enough that I think I can anticipate some scope creep, which again, some people like, it depends on the way you look at it. I think some clients would prefer that I didn't pad it out and just said what I mean, but then we have to be really, really tight with the specification. And a lot of times we don't get to that point, especially early on, like, because there's always going to be some leeway. Now that I see that the way that this works, maybe we want it to be like something a little bit different, or can we move this over here? And sometimes I'll do it like it's like it's not that big a deal to do. There's other times when there's been one project a few years ago where there was a whole bunch of functionality which the client just assumed would be in it, right? And it was like, there was not in the specification. That was not in anything. We're talking about different APIs. We're talking about bringing in like, connecting to like different things and pulling everything in. And that was not because, well, I would have assumed everyone would be able to do that. So that gets a bit difficult sometimes when you have that fixed price thing, and it's kind of like, and I don't know if it's a negotiation tactic where they act like, they'll act like, oh, now you're trying to have it on me. Well, you're telling me it's not going to be able to, have social media integration. I mean, social media, that's not that big a deal, but like something like, it's not going to be able to pull in Google Maps and route the direction for you. It's like, yeah, we didn't talk about any of that. It's like not in the specifications, not in anything. No, at no point was that mentioned. And you also get the other thing where it was like something was mentioned in a meeting, but it was not in the specification. Like it was not in the quote that we've provided. So like a lot of times you get into these meetings saying, hey, do you think we could do you think you use AI in it? We could. It would be expensive. Okay, all right. Do you think we could do social media integration? Yeah, that's possible. Is that what you want? Well, let me, I'm not sure if we want. And so things get mentioned, and then that's what comes up in later on when they ask for the scope. You guys can't hear me, by the way. Let me just make sure you guys can. Sometimes that's what gets mentioned in the in this, like later on when I say, yeah, but we did talk about that. I do remember we talked about this. So yes, but we did not agree on it. And that's one of those things. So like I have to, so in the end, what I did, and when we have our quote template in the bottom of it, we just say, if there's something that's not in the specification, that if there's something that's not quoted here that you think should be there, then we need to add it in there. Otherwise it'll be extra cost. Just to know that there's something that, my understanding of the project and their understanding of the project is different. And theirs might be like, hey, we're going to build this thing as we go. And mine is like, no, this is it. And this is what we said we're going to do. And that's the way it always should be as a developer. So it can be very difficult. But, when I think about doing time and materials, that just means I have to go through and say, okay, well, it's going to cost more. And then at some point, everything's forgotten. They go, oh, your original quote said it would, your original estimate said it would be whatever, 5,000. And now we're at 10,000. And that's because you keep adding things, or whatever. So hey, Ren is here. Ren, hey, what's up? Let's see. Rachel says, I'm worried about under or overcharging clients and selling myself too short versus ripping off a client. Sometimes when you say an app costs such 1,000, they think it's too dear. How do you justify it? A lot of time, let them go talk to other developers. Rachel, that's what I do. I'll say, have you ever had a client where you knew you could push the boundaries on price? Where you knew they could push the boundaries on price? No, I've never had one where I knew I could push the boundaries on price. That's always a thing. You go into that thing thinking, I don't want to go too high because then they're not going to want to do it, and I don't want to go too low because then I lose money on it. And it's like that's always the thing. So, but you have to be willing to put that price out there, right? I've worked with developers who would not give me a price, and they just start working, and I'm like, well, dude, you guys got to tell me how much it's going to cost, right? Because like right now you're not getting paid anything. I go, and they'll just push it back and back and back. In the end, they're doing like hours or possibly days of work, like examining this and every single side of things. And at some point you have to say, okay, I need to tell them what the price is, because if I give them and I can't give an exact price immediately, right? You cannot give an exact price unless you spend days or whatever. And then that's free work that you're doing for them. A lot of times I get clients will just say, hey, could just give me a quote on this. I go, well, that's why I give the ballpark. The ballpark is going to be 8,000 to 10,000. Are you okay with that ballpark? Yeah, could you just give me the quote anyway, though, like a more specific quote? And I'm like, no, are you okay with that ballpark? Because I'm not going any further, and so that you could do that. And one of the things, Rachel, what you could do if it's too dear for them encourage them to talk to other developers, right? If you're the only developer they're talking to, then there's something wrong there. Right? They're not serious about the project, right? If they talk to other developers and other developers code them less or more, then you'll know. But you're going to just be honest with them, right? And you stress the fact that you're going to give them quality, and you're going to do a good job for them. I mean, you could always get a cheaper price from somewhere, but they got to be, you got to have that conversation so they trust you and explain what it is. And I never just, I mean, I'll give, when the ballpark estimate is key, but that's usually, so what we do is we have this form on our website and they fill in, and we give a ballpark with, just a finger in the air. And sometimes it could be it's like if it's not specific what they want, if it's really not specific what they want, I say, okay, this is not enough information. You have to tell us a bit more. Otherwise, we'll say something like, okay, this is going to be like a huge, like ballpark estimate, so like 10 to 20,000, like, which is really like a huge difference, or which is generally about where, like, my projects usually go around that area, like between, like, I wouldn't do anything less than 6, and that's only if I'm doing it myself. I'm not dealing with other developers. If I have to bring other developers in, then it's got to be more, because it just does, right? And it depends on the project and what's involved in it. So when I give a ballpark, I'll give the ballpark, an estimated time frame, and then like 3 assumptions. Like, because a lot of times they don't know. So my assumption is we're going to build it on Google Cloud infrastructure. Assumption number 2 is client provides the graphics, or we provide the graphics. Assumption number 3 is available on Android or iPhone or whatever. Just three different points to say, look, this is what, based on our assumptions, which you did not mention, this is what we think it will probably cost. If you want to discuss it further, then you can. And the whole reason we do that is so that we don't have a situation where, in the early days, I spent so much time on the phone with people who had no budget, no idea how much something would cost. We would have these long meetings, possibly multiple meetings, and at the end, I put a price out, a ballpark out there, and I go, ooh, that's way outside my budget. Ooh, there's no way I could do that, and everything like that. And then we get into the whole, do you think you could do a percentage kind of thing? And that, and that's always a hard no for me. Like, it used to be something I consider, but it's always a hard no. Like, I'm not partnering on something. We're delivering a service when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, I mean, Rachel, let me know if that helps you, because I think that's something that I deal with. It's a lot of stress involved in that. MD says, hey, Eric, just got a new Android phone and there's no back button. Gesture navigation is enabled by default. This means I need to remove the hamburger menu from my apps. No, you don't. You should have to remove the hamburger menu. The hamburger menu is the upper left-hand corner. The back button, there should be there's a hardware back button, and then there's the gesture navigation, which I usually turn off. Like, a lot of clients say they want to turn off gesture navigation. It's weird when that happens, right? It's like most clients I've had don't anticipate that happening. I've had them say, can we remove that, the swipe navigation type things. But no, the hamburger navigation, that's the soft screen on the thing. It's the slide out drawer menu. That's what we're talking about, right? That's and usually what happens is you have that soft back button on the upper, in the action bar or whatever, in the upper left hand corner, and then you have the back button actually on the phone itself. And that's one of the things you have to anticipate. Like, you can't just, that's one of the nice things about navigation frameworks using routing, is that on Android is it takes into account the back button and the back button, like the soft back button and the back button. Because sometimes you'll see developers, what they'll do is they'll do a click event on the back button, and that doesn't take into account the actual hardware or software or the operating system back button. Let's see. Gesture navigation does not work well with the hamburger menu. I would disable gesture navigation then, if that's the case. If you're gonna have if that's really an issue. Again, like I said, I'm not a fan of swiping to go back. But Nezzy777. Hey Nezzy, how's it going? Says, hey, from Miami, Florida. No lockdown here. You're always welcome. Florida. My mom lives, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I'm going to go to Florida one of these days, I should say. But that's cool. That's awesome. Must be nice there. That's always one of those things. Florida and Texas were the ones who were just like we're just gonna like, everyone else is like, hunker down, and it's cool, awesome. Thanks, Desi. Um, Movie Monster. Hey, Movie Monster says it seems that ad costs are skyrocketing. What do you think? I think they always do. I mean, I've been paid for ads in recent months, so but they do seem to be going up and up and up, and it's harder. I mean, again, ads are getting harder to show. You even just having personalized ads is not as easy as it used to be. So, um, but are you talking about like in every country, Movie Monster? Or are you talking about just um, in the U.S.? Metallic W. Hey, Metallic W. Is it Metallic Wroolie? I am Metallic W. I just started learning to code from Kenya. Cool, that's awesome. So, what language are you learning now, Metallic W? Um, Besit Ali says, "What's the best way to market an app?" You just have to get it in front of people. So if it's like a really niche application, right? There's this, like, let's say it's something for cyclists. Let's say it's something for cyclists who are and you identify your target user. If you could say like, okay, this is or parents of kids learning kung fu or something like that. Let's say it's an application which is for kids learning taekwondo, for example. Then you have a very specific niche audience. And in my opinion, it doesn't make any sense to put AdMob ads out there and have like banner ads all over the place, or just reaching out to everybody, because you're very niche. And that's when Facebook and all those targeted ads are more useful, because then you could say, who do you actually want to approach, and then you know which groups you want to go to, how you're going to get it out to those kind of people. If you just want something where I just made this app and it's for everybody, then you might as well just go through and create. I think you should do some sort of advertising, and do a very low budget advertising so that you don't waste any money if your ad sucks or if your app sucks. So you're looking at the key thing is, we're going to go through the basics, which I know I've done videos on this before, but like, you got problem number one is, how do they find you, right? So that's the problem, first one you have, is how do you get it in front of them? Now it could be, you create ads. It could be you start spamming people on social media. It could be you print out banners. It could be you like write smoke signals in the sky. Obviously I'm being facetious, but the goal is to get people looking at it. So how do you do that, right? How do you get them to it? Goal number two is you need to make sure that when they get to that app page that they're actually downloading the application. So like if you have a bunch of people who are going and looking at your application, then the other one is search. Duh. That's what ASO is all about. So like is search optimization. So if somebody's searching for your application or what it is, you also have to make sure they found it. So that's all part one, discoverability. How are they going to find it? Number two is whether or not they download it. So if your screenshots suck and your descriptions suck and you have terrible reviews, no one's going to download it. So one of the nice things about ads is that you could shortcut that point from, you just kind of skip over part one, get the ads in front of people, get them looking at it. And if they're not interested, then you don't want to go into any other thing. Like you could do a whole bunch of work on social media, a whole bunch of stuff trying to build up a brand there. But it's not going to make a difference, because once they get to it, they're not downloading it. And step number three is when they download it, how long are they keeping it? And are you actually earning revenue from it? So like, and then that's kind of a thing. Like if they're downloading and uninstalling it immediately, then dude, what's wrong with your app? Like, why are the screenshots enticing? Why did they actually think about making that download? I've had clients say this. I know in the back in the old days, we used to say, well, it's free. Why wouldn't they download it? Which is ridiculous to think of now, because it's, it takes space on the phone. Let's see. Just go here. We've got, who's next? Morris says, do any of your clients know if you have a degree? U.S. government contracts usually require it. No, none of my clients ask. I mean, my clients, I don't really give them a CV. It's like there's a company and I'm, I don't say, again, I'm really pretty laid back about stuff. If I say stuff like, my name's Eric and I make apps. I don't say I'm Eric, I've got this degree in such and here's my background and here's my stuff and here's my, I'm an MCSD certified such and such. No, I don't do any of that kind of stuff. It's all just stuff like that. So no, I don't. I think it's different. So sorry, I just got distracted there by a message. One of the things I like working for government contracts, like for a while we were quoting for like requests for proposals and stuff like that. And I've, do stuff with like a bunch, like with government, it's like you get a lot of how do I say this the right way? A lot of government officials and a lot of community workers who just want to have lots of meetings. They want to have loads and loads of meetings. And they want to, and they want to have everything up front, and it gets to a point where, and they want to have, okay, fill in this document. Oh, and our IT team needs you to fill in this document, and it's like they'll send you this huge thing, which is just ridiculous, like all the kind of information that they want. And those are the kind of projects that I don't really like to go for. So we used to do these requests for proposals, and I got one today, like thinking, okay, you got 6 hours to compete for this request for proposal. You could compete with all these other companies. We're asking you to do a request for proposal, and we're just basically blanking it out for everybody. You have 6 hours to give us a request for proposal, to which I think, dude, already, like, I don't like this relationship. Like, why would you get into that relationship? If you were desperate, you would do it. If you're not desperate, you wouldn't, right? What you want to do is build up your portfolio, and you're not going to be a commodity, right? If they're going for the lowest bidder, you don't want to be in that race. So that's why I don't like doing those kind of stuff. But no, that my degree never comes up. No, but like nobody's ever said, hang on a second, you got a degree. Like my degree, Morris, my degree is in history. My degree is in U.S. history with a psychology minor. Right? And I came to this country with that. And my whole thing was I applied to every job. I tell the story all the time, but I applied to every job there was. I applied to, I nearly became a ticket collector on the trains. I didn't even get that job. Blockbuster Video. I wanted the night manager job, but no, I wasn't even good enough to be a manager of Blockbuster Video. And then I got this weird position where it was like at an open evening where it was kind of like trainee software developers, and it was like I had no experience. I didn't pretend I had experience. I didn't lie about anything. You guys all have way more experience than I did back then, right? So, but like I started reading everything. I mean, the books that I would always have a book. I'd go to the library when I couldn't afford to buy books, and there was like books at the place I was working that you can borrow. So I read things that most people didn't read. Remember the JavaScript Bible? Back in the 90s, that was huge. And I read through that thing, right? When most people just knew JavaScript as being, I mean, this is way before Node.js, but like when people knew, like in the late 90s, when people just use if textbox.text is equal to blank, then alert, you need to fill in the first name. That was like all they used. And I was learning how to do arrays and all kinds of complicated stuff in there. Because that was kind of strange that most people weren't doing that. I'm really going off on a ramble on that, but let's see. Bassett also says, I have many apps on Play Store. I'm getting daily not more than 20 to 30 downloads. What should I do to boost downloads? Okay, so I think the first thing you should do, again, we'll look at those 3 issues. Are your apps being discovered? Now there's a user acquisition report. It's called something different now. I can't remember. I keep forgetting what it's called. But it used to be called the user acquisition report. So we can see how many times your app shows up in search and how many times they've actually viewed the page and how many downloads you have based on that. That's where I would start. So if nobody's getting into that first stage, then you have to think about, who are your target audience? What are they looking for? What they're typing into search. If they're typing into search to something that's too saturated, then you need to think about something else. Like what else can you get them to search on that is not that? Or what, like, so let's say I'm doing let's say I have a dating app. And everybody, and which iOS doesn't really like. I had a conversation about this earlier today. iOS is like they don't really do dating apps anymore. Like you have to be really special in order to get through the approval thing. Last year they kind of said we've got enough dating apps, thank you. So let's say you have a dating app, right? If you were targeting the keywords dating app, then there's no way you're going to show up. But if you had something more specific, like I don't know, like let's say like 90% of people, that's what they're searching for. You got to hope that there's enough people searching for something else that you can get in on, so that you can actually do that. So, let's see, Jeff King. Jeff, hey, how's it going? Love your picture. Have you ever written sloppy code just to finish a project or task? How dare you? Sometimes I feel like I could rewrite something better, but that requires more work than we planned, so I don't do it. Yeah, I mean, dude, you got deadlines are number one. Like, you talk to any professional, and they will tell you like the deadline is number one. Like, when you talk to developers and they talk about sloppy code, it's like, well, we didn't have enough time, and sometimes they have enough time and they still write the sloppy code. And the thing is, the more experience you get, the more disciplined you get as you go. Like, and I've got loads. I got stuff that I would love to go through and rewrite. Sometimes you write something and it's elegant, and then like another requirement comes in, another requirement comes in, requirements comes in, and the foundation is just like, it's like, ooh, I need to go through and refactor this and do that stuff. But you talk to any journalist, right? They have deadlines. Entertainers have deadlines. Everybody has deadlines. And everybody does things, and you have to put something out, right? There was a good book this is a book about writing by William Zinsser called How to Write Well or something. I can't remember what it's called. But it was one of the things he talked about was he went on this panel of writers, and there was it was him as a writer, and he was like a professional writer, and there was another guy who was like, it was like somebody's dad, but he's like also had to put out a book. And the other guy was saying like, well, if the mood doesn't hit me, then I won't, then I'll just, I'll put it aside. I'll come back to it later, if it whatever, right? And he was like, dude, you gotta you don't have that option when you're a professional. You have to put things live, and sometimes that means, I want this elegant code is not working, right? I really want this to work, but it's gonna take a lot more time to do it. The deadline still exists. You could always go back and do it, and sometimes you could convince your client that I'd really like to go back and take another stab at this. But you need to get it over the finish line. So that's something I think it's normal. Anybody who says they never write sloppy code either works at a place where they're not very challenged, or they don't have to deliver very often, or they're lying. I think having a bit of experience knows like, God, I know that was sloppy. Like, if you don't think any of your code is sloppy, then you maybe need to hang around other developers, I think. Nilesh says, hey, from India, I just started developing my how I find my first client. Well, if you just started developing, it might be a bit difficult. I think you need to work on your portfolio to get things out there. If you just I would think to begin with, Nilesh, your first client is going to be you. You have to put out something so that you can demonstrate what you know how to do. And I know if you can't afford to hire you, and none of us can afford to hire ourselves, especially when we have no revenue coming in, then you need to target something really small. Like if it's if you go out there and say, I can produce your iPhone and your Android app and your such and such app, but you have no experience, then that's not going to work. But if you were to say I can help with the deployment process, or I can help one specific niche. But I think just having that portfolio and demonstrating that you could do it is important. Rachel says, thanks, helps me a lot. Have you ever taken on a client who wish you'd never worked with, or resented not taking on a client? Yeah, definitely. It's one of those it's like when I was doing the daily videos, it was difficult because there were times where it was just like there'd be somebody I was working with, and I just they were just the bane of my existence. They're just always there, and always like that, and the requirements kept changing. Here's an example of one, and this has happened several times. So I think is that you take on a project and it's not a new project. It's like hey, we had these other developers work on it and they were terrible, right? Which is it flatters your ego a little bit. Say, oh, terrible developers. I know terrible developers, right? But then you have to ask yourself the question: was it those developers, or was it the client being difficult to work with? So you take on a project which is existing, and they just want a few things fixed on it. A few there's a few bugs, and we just want a few things fixed. So they give you a list of bugs, and then you fix those things, and then you put it out there, and then they're like, oh, this isn't working now. Oh, this isn't working now. This isn't working now. And all of a sudden you're like on the hook for it. Like, and they're saying, that last thing, it's got a bug in it because now you can't do this. And like, well, that's like way on another, like, that's like a whole nother area of the app, which I have nothing to do with. And then it comes on you to like, that becomes your thing, right? And that gets really difficult. So there was one where I had to keep going back, and like I could go through the Git repository and look at the code and think and say, hey, previous version, this existed. Previous version of that, this existed. And it's difficult to get somebody to go onto the App Store and download a previous version because they're like, I'm pretty sure that worked. And they're like, dude, it never worked. Like I think you're like, it's one of those, you get that from time to time. So and sometimes, yeah, there's times, that's why it's difficult to say, because when you need the money, you need the money, right? You need to take on revenue. Like you have a family, you have responsibilities, you have all this kind of stuff, and you like, or like at the time, like I had like staff, and I had like people I had to pay, and I had like, I guess like I couldn't just say like, sorry everybody, like, so you take on those projects that you're not quite that keen on, so which is difficult, like, and yeah, I feel like, so the worst ones, Rachel, for me, like, and there's been a couple like this, I hate to say, where, I think I quote like 3 months, this would be like a 3-month project, which if I think it's 3 months, I think it'll be just, I think it'd be 6 weeks, and it'll give us the extra time just to make sure that anything comes out. And I've had some that have gone on for a year, and it's just like, it's ridiculous. There's been one last year. There's one last year where it was a, the kind of thing where the requirements kept coming out of the woodwork. It was like, there was another team doing the back end API. We're doing the front end, and the API kept changing, and they kept thinking stuff like, oh, what about this bit? Oh, what about this bit? Like, and it was another kind of thing where it's like, wait, this was, where's this come from? Like, all of a sudden you're talking about logic, which is not documented, and so it's kind of thing where you're asking for the documentation, and it just didn't end well. But this is a project where my profit margin on it, like, I think the total project was going to be like, I don't want to say what, like, but it was my margin was going to be like 2,000. That was going to be profits from it. And I ended up spending tens of thousands on it. And the client spent like, I think in the end, they spent 6,000. Like, it was just ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And the only reason I kept it going was because I thought, okay, this was a bad client, a bad decision, but if I just finish this off, we'll get it done. And that never happened, because it was like, it kept getting pushed further back. And we're talking years. And it was so stressful. It was the kind of thing where, like, I couldn't sleep at night. I would, like, I had a developer working on it, and he was struggling with it, but he was also like, not like, he had his own problems. But then when I took it over, said, okay, I'm just gonna do it myself. I'm not making any money off of this, but I'm just gonna, like, just get it done. And then months go by, and meetings, and meetings, and I'm thinking, like, I'm not making any money. All I'm doing is I'm paying for their app, right? And it was and which I was, for a while, I convinced myself I was okay for, because it was my reputation on the line. But then it got to the point where this is just getting ridiculous. It is just, I'm like, I'm not just paying for their app. I'm paying for their app 3 times over, like, for them. So it was bad. I guess you get a gut feeling in the early consultation, any potential client. Yeah, you got to really go for that gut feeling. And that's one of the things why I've, like, if I don't want to take on a project, it's like, if somebody says, okay, here's what I want, right? And then you say, okay, give me a few days to come up with a quote. And then while you're sitting there, coming up with it, they come up with like another requirement, or so, hey, you know what I was thinking about that thing? It'd be really cool if we could add this in there too. Oh, we're really cool to add this. Okay, well, all of a sudden we're like, like, I'm trying to do this bit of work, and doing a quote takes time. It takes time. It takes money. It takes time and money, because you have to sit down and actually do it. And for me, it's usually like at night, because I don't have time in the day to do it. So I'm working on these things in the evenings or the really early mornings, and you're doing this stuff. So you give it, okay, here's the quote. I spent like whatever 4 hours on it, and they go, "Ah, thanks. That's a bit high. Do you think instead you could change this?" Right? And I've had projects where I've been through like 7 or 8 versions of a quote, never got a penny for it, but spent like days on this. This was like last year, no, right before the virus and everything. But well, I'm really going up. I'm really like complaining here, aren't I? What's your target customer? Who do they spend their time with online? That's exactly right. Movie Monster. I run an ad campaign for my language exchange app. Should I pick specific countries or go for all? I think if it's a language exchange app. So what does that mean? Does that mean like a social app? Okay, so like you learn language. I would think you'd have to go for all because it depends on which languages are available. Patrick, how's it going? Says, I know what you mean about meetings. Every organization of a certain size has loads of people whose job is to have meetings. I know, it's weird. I remember like, this is when I was still like when my apps were still out, like when my apps were like starting to gain some steam. Like this is probably 2013, 2014. I was like working. I was still contracting, and so I'd go to I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, work on my own apps, get answering the emails, work with the developers, say, okay, do this. They have a question. I say, okay, you have to get me these questions by 8 a.m. UK time, and they'd always come at 10 a.m. or like, hey, we can't figure out how this works, and so it was like, oh, whatever. So like it was a bit stressful, but then like so everything from 4 o'clock to like 8 o'clock in the morning was like just go. So I gotta do this. This app's gonna. I got an email from this. Somebody wants a refund, whatever. Blah 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 blah. Right, and then I got the developers. They have this. They got some weird thing they want to talk about, whatever. So like it was just go. I get in my. I had a motorcycle at the time, so I get on my motorcycle. I'd go to like the office, which would be like an hour away. I get in there. I'd apologize for being late because I was always late, and I'd get in there, and then we go into a meeting, and everything would just slow down. Like it was just like and it was like I don't want to say what kind of business it was, but like it was like so I was there like each day, and like you'd go into these meetings, and it was like people were like, it was like I was trying to do these apps, which I had more users on my apps than the users of the software I was working on for this client, as a contractor. And we would have like all these meetings, and everyone go in there, and we just wanted to have these like. Everyone just wanted to be heard. Like that was a thing. It was kind of like they'd raise an objection just because, they don't want to feel like they're not important to the thing. And it just was a bit weird. And I think it was when I started, like, cause before I had been in meetings before and it never really bothered me. But when I got to the point where I was like paying for developers myself, I'm thinking, dude, just do the work. Like just do the work and let's produce. And in meetings is like, let's just talk. Let's analyze. Let's see. Squirt Vonnegut. I love the name. Prison Mike. You're best around. Nothing's going to ever keep you. You're the best around. Nothing ever going to keep you down. Karate Kid. K Claus. Hey, how's it going? Says, hey, I'm looking to do a cross-platform for freelancing. Currently, on my way to becoming an Android developer with Kotlin. What do you recommend for cross-platform? Flutter, React Native, or KMM? Thanks. See, I was looking at KMM recently, and I couldn't quite figure it out. If you're a Kotlin developer, then maybe KMM is the way to go. But having said that, I've never used it. I like using Flutter, right? React Native, I'm not that big a fan of. I know a lot of you guys are React Native developers out there, but I love using Flutter. I like the fluidity of it, the way that you're putting these things together and everything just sort of, the hot reloading works really well. I know hot reloading works well in other languages too, but KMM, which is, again, like I said, I haven't used it, and I know that that's the cross-platform Kotlin libraries. I would imagine that probably should be where you stay. Like your end users are not going to know what language you're using. I mean, unless you're like, it used to be in the old Ionic days, you could tell it was an Ionic app because somebody didn't style it well enough. But so they won't really be able to tell what it is. But you look at one of the things to keep in mind when doing cross-platform framework is the bundle sizes and the APK sizes. just to make sure that it's not too big. Let's see. Patrick says, exactly. The devs who I met who think their code isn't sloppy have been more lone warriors in the past and haven't worked on a team, never had any feedback. Yeah, you do stuff like, yeah. I think, okay, what kind of stuff have I done where like, it's kind of like, okay, I don't want to do a whole nother function for this, so I'm going to make this other function handle this. Or it's kind of the same way. Like, okay, one of the things I really, really hate is like when I have a developer who just takes the like, oh, this function works, I need to use it, so I'll just copy, and then they're just basically copying the same code. Like there's no modularization, no shared code, right? I'm thinking, okay, these functions are similar enough that I think this should be one function with a parameter passed in. So you do this like whatever. That just makes sense to me. It's less code, whatever. And when you have when you give a project to somebody and they give it back to you and it's like, okay, so if we need to fix a bug in this function, we need to do it in all these different files and it becomes unmaintainable and stuff like that. And that's the lone developer. Lone developer says, I know my code. And lone developer doesn't document anything because they're loned. They know how it works. But I mean, you ever go back to code you looked at like 5 years ago? Okay, this is one thing that happened this week. I was telling my son about it. Like I had a project that I'd given to like somebody else, and they get like another development company worked on. They said, could you just have a look at this thing? And I looked at it and I'm like going, I don't know what this is right here. And then it was like a comment there saying changed by Overpass. I was like, it was kind of like it wasn't the same project, but it was like a derivative of it. Like I guess it changed hands loads of times, and it was like I didn't remember doing any of that. Kevin Hawthorne, good evening. Hey, how's it going, Kevin? Let's see. Bassett Ali says, is it a good idea to build apps for local small businesses and then spent on marketing? Yeah, I think if you could sell it to local small businesses, that might actually work out because there'd be a smaller market for it. And you can convince them that the app gives them more gravitas as a business, like that. I have small businesses as clients. Nezzy 777 says, is it possible to make a client a decent living self-publishing an app? I was never a fan of dealing with clients. Yeah, I mean, dealing with clients is difficult. If you could self-publish an app, definitely do it. If you had to choose between the two, get an app of your own with passive income. But it's not like you're making a choice. Like it's like, the revenue, I mean, money has to come in. So like there's different avenues for that revenue to come in. It's not saying, okay, I have to choose between clients or my own app. I think I'll go this way, right? It's like, no, because you should be doing your own apps anyway. You should be putting out your own apps and then hopefully those, and try to make those work because that's what you're working on, but you're still doing the client work. Think of yourself as a musician who is like, you're writing your own music. You're burning the midnight oil, writing your own music, but nobody's paying you yet for that work. So you have to take on bar mitzvahs and weddings and whatever to do that kind of stuff. So you get paid and increase your skills at the same time while you work on the thing that's uniquely your own. Sweep the leg. Yeah. Thanks, UK Vaz. Bas Ali says less code equals easy code maintenance and easy bugging. Yes, easy bug fixing. Yes, it does mean less code. Doesn't mean easy code. Okay, this is another thing okay. So sometimes lambda expressions. So like in C# you could do like a link query and you can put everything in one line, which is really cool and really efficient. It's like, instead of having 5 lines, I got it all in one line. But sometimes when you're stepping through it, you just want, dude, I gotta go and like break this out so that I can step through this and find out what's going on. So sometimes, yeah, but like I totally get what you're saying. Patrick says, what drives me crazy is abstraction, building abstractions for things that are already abstracted. Yes. We had a project, I think it was last year. It was early last year where I decided I wanted to use Blazor for it. Like it was like, I thought it was the app was in, I think the app was in Flutter, but like the back end is in Firebase. So I thought rather than use Angular, because I'm not, every time I struggle with Angular, I thought I'd like to do this in Blazor. So I kind of did some stuff in Blazor where it's like, okay, I could connect to Firebase using a JavaScript bridge, whatever. And then I thought I'll give it to like a developer, and I hired a guy who was a .NET developer, and he came back with a solution that had like 8 projects in it. It was like it got really like I was like, what is all like? There's like loads of stuff here, and it's like and I'm looking through it, and it was like abstraction after abstraction after abstraction, and I thought it went like a little bit too far in another direction. Like it's kind of like I kind of like it was being too it's like sometimes you get that thing where the code is like brilliant, but you're like, dude, it's unreadable. Like it's like you made this really complicated, and which but K Claus says thank you. If you work for a client on an app, what costs are involved for you? Is it just your working hours or anything else to keep in mind? There's lots of things to keep in mind, so it depends on what it is. So like if a client is like, if they already have their own infrastructure, if you're using your own equipment, is something to keep in mind. If they want like the kind of things that you might need to consider as expenses are graph libraries or something like that. If there's any custom controls that you can't create your own, you got if you need to, like if it's an iOS application and you don't have an iPhone, that's something to keep in consideration. I don't think that means your client has to pay for an iPhone, but it is something to keep in mind that if you do have to buy one for yourself, you have to that has to come from somewhere. So it's like that that kind of stuff. It's it's why if I'm working in an office and they provide the computer and if they provide the computer and all the equipment and everything, and I just have to show up and it just then it's gonna cost less than if it's like I'm using my own stuff, because I gotta all that kind of stuff. And that's why employees get paid less than contractors do. Contractors use their own stuff. They're responsible for their own skills. They're responsible for their own equipment. Sometimes they're responsible for their own for a lot more. And they're also like they don't have they're also easy to get rid of. Parth says Udacity nanodegree Android development is worth it. Udacity. That's not the same as Udemy. What is Udacity? I don't know. I've never heard of it, so I don't know. I don't know if anybody's looking for it. Parth. I think the fact that it's a nanodegree. I don't know. Think about what, like, if someone's hiring you, is that something that people are actually looking for? Like, if you have to explain to them what it is, then it's not really that impressive. It's kind of like these things where you see people who put on their CVs like LinkedIn courses, not LinkedIn, like LinkedIn learning courses or lynda.com, whatever. You think it's not really a course, like it's kind of like a So let's see. Bassa said, have you ever put your app code for sale on platforms like Envato? Nah, no. God, you know what? I look at that kind of stuff, and first of all, like especially with app code, like for whatever reason, like a reskinned app, if it's more beneficial for them to put it on Envato to sell it, then obviously it's not going to make a lot of money on the app stores. But that's beside the point. Sometimes you just want like the kind of stuff I buy from Envato, like Code Canyon would be like maybe like a WordPress template, like through ThemeForest, or sometimes buy some just like a nice little tool that you could put in some code. But then you look at the comments, and like that developer who released it, like I bought it for $20, and that developer has to support it, right? So they have to make sure the code is readable, the documentation is there. Like every time somebody has an issue, they have to respond to it, otherwise get bad reviews. To me, that doesn't sound like a very fun existence as a developer. Chetan says, in your view, what percentage of users typically end up purchasing paid versions of a premium app? Assume the quality of the app is good, and let's say it's a utility app. For me, it's low. It's like probably 2%, less than 2%. You have to make sure it's not something like remove ads. It's got to be something that's useful. So yeah, to me it's pretty low, but like that's why you gotta get those downloads up. Let's see. It's for me just useful. Let's see. WGU Colleges uses Udacity for the core of their data analytics degree. Okay, I didn't even know that. So look, so I can't really weigh in on it because idiot Eric doesn't even know that much, which gives it a lot more credibility than something like Udemy. Ah, got it. I think it's the so it might be Parth. Let's see. Was it Parth who asked that? Yes. So like Katie Class says, Kate Class says, yes, it is. For me, it was useful. That's what I was completed. And I'm getting interviews, learned a lot from it, and published my own app. Yes. Okay, cool. Then I changed my answer. Yeah, obviously it is. I don't know anything about it, but it's helped Kate Class out. So it sounds like it's pretty cool. So, great. Hey, it looks like we got to the bottom of the. Oh, hey, thanks everybody for leaving the thumbs up. I really appreciate it. It's nice to hear from you guys and hang out and talk about stuff. And I also got to sing a little bit of "You're the Best Around," which was awesome. So I'm gonna finish the rest of the song after the live stream. I'm gonna stand on the table. I'm gonna loosen my shirt. I'm gonna turn the lights facing up, and I'm just gonna like belt it out. Let's just see what we got here. I sold my big house, so now I'm going to buy a little house and sit there making apps until they pay me a real salary or I run out of money. Ooh, going all for broke. Awesome. Let's see. Basta says, also, please change the camera angle after some time. Seriously? All right. Okay, everybody. That's it. I'm going to call it on this live stream after I change the camera angle. Thanks, Basta. And thanks for joining the live stream. Thanks for the thumbs up. I hope you guys have a great week ahead. Stay healthy and stay safe, and I'll talk to you guys again next week. See you later.